as far as one thing that's interesting about all this is that you can look at what the House has done. It's controlled by Democrats, and obviously the House operates very differently from the Senate in that there's no filibuster. You don't need
the House is a dictatorship. Yes, right.
Yeah, you don't need 60% of people to approve every bill. So you can just pass everything along party lines whenever you want to if you have the votes for it in your own party, right? But you look at the gun package that just went through, and there's for the final bill for those 7 reforms that they passed, they got exactly 218 Democrats to vote for it. They got 5 Republicans who also came over, but that's very, very close. Now that they don't have a huge majority to begin with.
They only have a 5-seat margin right now, as it is. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but so I mean, you look at some of those.
That is not that is not a real bipartisan consensus. You could call it bipartisan, but that is not. I mean, that's
right.
It's look, there are members who are in cycle and they thought it would, and look, I'm not going to underestimate their own concern about this issue. It's a very serious issue and their own feelings about this issue. But there is, you look at who voted for it on the Republican side. 4
of the 5 aren't running for re-election.
Yeah, exactly.
Fitzpatrick's the only one, and he's had a long history.
Yeah, right. So
for gun control.
Yeah, and from New York City, right? From
he's from Pennsylvania, but yeah.
I'm sorry,
near Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But what I guess my point, what I wanted to get at with that is, so they passed this package, and this is where Democrats can do whatever they want as a party in the House. Democrats. And what they passed were things that aren't what the president supports. Not that he doesn't support what they passed, but not a lot of the biggest ticket items that he wants. There was no assault weapons ban. There's no repeal of the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, which the president has literally said that he prays to God. That's the number one thing he wants to get rid of when it comes to guns. It's a very interesting. It shows you that he really cares about the issue.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he says it all the time, and it gives you. It's a tell that he actually is deeply involved in the issue, because that's not something I think a lot of people even have ever heard of before. It certainly doesn't have the same level of notoriety as an assault weapons ban or universal background checks. But and there isn't even they already passed the universal background check bill earlier. But so it's interesting to see what they actually are able to get through, and chiefly that they aren't able to get an assault weapons ban through. Now, I know that Pelosi has promised a markup on the assault weapons ban, but my reading is, unless they're doing that vote today or tomorrow, they're probably never going to vote on that bill, right?
I don't know. It's funny because when she said it, I don't think our staff was fully ready for it, because then I actually wrote the other day, vote on a assault weapons ban, because she said markup, and markup is a vote, and then they actually yelled at me, saying, "Oh, the staff yelled at me."
Yeah,
so I was like, "Well, Pelosi said it. She said markup.
Right.
Well, she meant hearing. She meant a hearing. But she said markup, and a markup is a vote. So we went round and round on it, but I don't think right now they could pass an assault weapons ban in the House. I don't.
No, I mean, look at the magazine ban that was part of this package.
Yeah.
They barely got that through. It was 220.
Yeah.
So, and they needed Republicans for it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Could they get an assault weapons ban through the House?
It does not feel like, and it's
which is remarkable.
They would get. I'm not sure. I think probably would get all 50 Senate Democrats, but maybe not. I'm not sure. I mean, look, it's I'm not. Does Tester vote for it? Maybe Manchin.
I don't think Tester votes for assault weapons ban.
I don't know. I don't know what he does. Is he running for re-election? Because if he isn't, he votes for it. I assume he is, but otherwise, I don't know if they could get, like your point is, they couldn't get 218 Democrats for it in the House.
I don't think they could get 50 in the Senate either.
I don't think they could either.
And you definitely couldn't. I don't think you can get a single Republican.
Yeah, we're nowhere near assault weapons ban. I will say,
and if you look at that Quinnipiac poll too, that found support for assault weapons ban, and this is after the Uvalde shooting,
Right.
is only at 50%, which is the lowest it's been since 2013.
Is that right?
Since they were doing that.
I didn't realize it. So lowest in a decade, right?
Yeah, which is crazy.
I would do.
Usually,
I do have a question for you though, and because I am a Hill rat, I'm up here all the time, and I'm in the bubble of the Congress. It seems to me, and you've written a tremendous amount on the NRA and the reload, and and the future of the NRA, and kind of feels like the narrow base of the NRA now. You know, the legacy of the NRA, especially for Democrats. 2 points. Legacy, the NRA for Democrats is still everything, whereas for the gun rights movement, it's not. It feels like, at least what I can tell. But for Democrats, the NRA is behind every rock. You know,
right?
Every tree, every rock, everything. You see the NRA everywhere, and it doesn't feel like it is nationally. But to me, I do think, and this is kind of what I want your take on. I do think some of the messaging, it just feels like some of the messaging for the gun rights movement is, I don't know how, it's just really flat and ineffective right now. The good guy with the gun thing, that is just, that seems to me just, out of date. And, they're also like the whole thing that they're going to, take guns from law abiding citizens. I mean, that is where they immediately go. Democrats are going to come for your guns. And that's where they immediately go for. And that, I think it still resonates with a certain point of the gun rights movement, but I think broadly, generally to the public, we know the reality is no one's taking anybody's guns away from anybody. I mean,
well, it's interesting.
We buy 20 million guns a year. I mean,
right.
We're not, nobody's coming to take your gun. And that's just what's reported, right? That's, I don't know, so like, we've sold 40 million guns in the last 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No. Certainly from a practical standpoint, mass confiscation is not realistic in the United States. There are at this point, the latest small arms survey said is from 2018, which found there were like 390 million plus guns, more guns than people. So there's probably significantly more than that now, after the big buying spree we've seen over the last couple of years. But so from a practical standpoint, Americans own 3 times as many guns. American civilians have 3 times as many small arms, firearms, as the entire world's militaries combined.
So I didn't realize it was. I knew we outnumbered. I didn't realize it was 3 times. Yeah, we have. The
world's militaries have about 133 million small arms combined, all of them.
Right.
Americans own about 400 times as many firearms as our entire law enforcement community does in this country. Right. So just to give you some basic context, I think if people hear that number and they think, "Oh, we have a lot of guns," but they don't understand the context. Is we have way more guns than you could ever realistically try to round up. Even if even if it was just AR-15s, right? The industry estimates 18 million of those.
Right.
That's so if you got rid of 90% of them, people, let's just say 90% of the ARs out there, people were willingly going to turn in and destroy themselves.
Buyback program.
You'd still have twice as many ARs in circulation among civilians than the entire arsenal of the entire law enforcement community in the country. So, just to give you, and no confiscation has ever been anywhere near that successful, even in other countries like Australia or New Zealand.
No.
We're going to see how Canada handles their confiscation efforts. It's not going so well to this point. But anyway, I will say that when it comes to, we're in an interesting place, right? Because as Democrats nationally have become, at least not necessarily rhetorically, less forceful on gun restrictions, but less practically able to pass the things that they've long talked about. You have seen a number of candidates move in the opposite direction and outright say they want to confiscate firearms. That's Beto O'Rourke's position that he still holds as he's running for Texas governor. Even Kamala Harris, the vice president, agreed with Eric Swalwell in that she wants a mandatory buyback of assault weapons, so-called assault weapons. So there is this. I understand what you mean as far as like,
I'm just kind of
it's not practical, but
I'm just seeing from a guy I'm so in the bubble. It's hard for me to see sometimes like is the national message from gun rights groups evolving?
I will say
becoming more sophisticated.
Yeah, I will say that you look at the NRA. I went to the convention,
right,
and their response to Uvalde was basically just repeating the same exact response that they had to Sandy Hook. And obviously, they as an organization are far weaker than they were even just 3 years ago. If you look at their revenue, their membership, their spending. So the NRA as an entity is much less powerful. We should probably do another episode where we talk maybe about what you're seeing on influence on the NRA on the Hill, but because we're running out of time, unfortunately.
Back in the day it was tremendous.
Yeah. And today I imagine it's probably not the same level.
No, back in the day, an NRA bulletin was like, that was amazing. And you could move probably 50 to 75 Democratic votes back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
In the 90s.
Yeah, but they become
I remember when John Dingell beat the gun locks bill, he and DeLay, following Columbine, they had 300 votes against that.
Right.
I mean, there was huge majorities against that. Yeah.
And some of that is the polarization of the NRA, but also some of that is probably the polarization of the parties themselves.
Absolutely.
And which is driving which, I think, is a very interesting question. But one thing to notice is that the NRA is not the be all and end all when it comes to the power of gun owners in the United States. And you'll see that the people blocking these the assault weapons ban or the president's first ATF director nominee, for instance, are not like Republicans with A+ ratings by the NRA. They're usually Democrats with D or F ratings from the NRA. And so the influence of gun owners extends well beyond the influence of just the NRA, though I will say that they are still a very important organization, and that I don't know of any other organization that has that level of influence on the Hill when it comes to guns.
DOA or none of those groups, they're not there. Gun Owners of America, there's important groups, but they're not the NRA.
Not to the level of the NRA. No. That's the thing.
No.
So it's this interesting balance of like the NRA is less powerful and not a be all and end all for guns, but they are still probably the most powerful gun related group on either side of the issue. And they still wield a lot of
legacy
influence.
Than anything. I'm just wondering if the messaging changes from the gun rights group, does that change the policy down the road? I'm not talking now. I'm talking maybe 10, 15 years where there is maybe some more bipartisanship. Like if we they're not going to seize our guns, but maybe we should, this is America. This is who we are. We are a gun society. We are a gun owning society. It's not going to change. It's been in our blood since the beginning of the Republic. It's not going anywhere. Right. Maybe we can have less.
I just from when you look at the gun rights movement and the groups that have come up to fill some of the void left by the NRA's shrinking, you don't see like a lot of more moderate positions on gun policy being taken. If anything, it's probably the opposite. Public.
You think in 10, 20 years that will still be the same way?
I don't know. What will be most interesting, I think, is to watch this new breed of gun owner, this new class of gun owner that's come up the last couple of years, who are younger. Right. There's more minorities. There's more women.
More affluent.
There's more. And they live in more urban areas. So, how will they change the gun debate? And my guess is actually that they'll make Democrats a more gun-friendly party in the long run. That would be my thought.
Very interesting. Yeah.
But we'll have to see. That's what I think the long-term trend to watch.